Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Millennium Pod, a Star Wars podcast by me, Ari, at ari.in.space on TikTok and at millenniumpod_ on Twitter and Instagram. This week I'm super excited because I have brought back my OG guest, the first guest who was ever on this podcast, my sister. Some of you may remember her as the Jar Jar Binks fangirl if you listened to that episode. But we're here today to talk about not Jar Jar. It's very exciting. Why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, give us your name, pronouns, and who your favorite Clone Wars character is.
Hi, my name is Genevieve. My pronouns are she, her, and my favorite Clone Wars character at the moment is probably Ahsoka because, you know, she's that badass kind of girl.
She's that badass kind of girl. Well, she's not wrong in that description. My favorite Clone Wars character is Kit Fisto. I'm getting stared down. I'm just kidding. Mine is probably also Ahsoka. Which leads us into what we're going to be talking about today. So Genevieve's here visiting me, and I wanted to force her to watch some more Clone Wars because when we were doing the Jar Jar Binks episode, which is episode 5, I think, it was her first time watching Clone Wars, and I introduced it to her, and we had a great time. So I wanted to force her to watch some more random arcs, and so between TikTok and Instagram, I asked for everybody's opinion on what we should watch, and the vast majority of people said Ahsoka Leaves the Order was what we should watch, which was, of course, painful. So thanks a lot, everybody who voted, for inflicting pain upon us. But that's what we watched, and I mean, I had already seen it, so I was prepared. But give us the quick rundown. How did you feel? How did you feel about the?
Well, at first it started off great, and then it ended terribly. And they didn't play the usual closing credit sound at the end when she left, which just was the cherry on top of depressingness, and I just about cried.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you just looked over at me from across the room and was like, that's it? And I was like, yeah, that's it, bro. Now we move into season 6, which is possibly sadder at times, so.
Rip-a-roni. That's all I gotta say, really.
So, one of my favorite parts about this arc in the Clone Wars is how it shows just how much Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship was important and how important it was to Anakin himself. Because, I mean, I think in general, across all Star Wars fans, a lot of people would agree that this was, one of the key moments in Anakin's downfall. And we can see that, in the end, even when she says something along the lines of, I just can't go back to the Order or whatever, and then he's like, I understand that more than you know.
Dun dun dun. Dun 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 dun.
You're welcome, everybody. That was a beautiful musical interlude here. It was actually kind of funny, though, that you bring that up, because I remember, I think about the second episode of the arc, you made the comment, why is the Imperial March playing in the background?
Yeah, it was when Admiral What's-His-Nuts, that stupid evil dude, was just
Tarkin.
I don't remember what it was. He was talking to them, and then the Imperial March, or whatever it's called, started playing. I was like, how could they?
Can you tell that this is a casual Star Wars fan over here with General What's-His-Nuts? And, yeah, she meant Tarkin. But I agree. You know what? He doesn't even deserve a name. He's so terrible.
He really does not. Not one bit.
He was something else. But, going back to that, I think here's a question for you. As somebody who hasn't seen all of the Clone Wars and isn't, a hardcore Star Wars fan, you're more casual, would you also agree that we get a lot more insight into Anakin's character through this arc?
Yes. You really get to understand who he is as a person, I'd say, and get a deeper understanding of his values.
Right, and, how driven he is by, the people he cares for.
Yes. Which kind of plays in again to, how when he just wanted to protect Padme in the end, you know?
Yes, I agree. This is just yet another example of how driven he is by his loyalty to people. I mean, he wasn't ready to give up the rest of the council, with the exception of maybe Obi-Wan and Plo Koon, was pretty much ready to give up on Ahsoka, but he wasn't, because
that's why we love him.
That's why Genevieve loves him. Kind of jumping off from that here, another thing I was thinking about that I wanted to ask you, again, as somebody who is, not a hardcore Star Wars fan, does did these episodes give you any more insight into the Jedi Council and, ultimately why they may have fallen?
Yeah, because they're all just a bunch of losers, and I hate them all. And I gotta admit, I kind of like Mace Windu, and then I watched this stupid arc, and I was like, oh, no, never mind. Mace Windu, you suck. You may have a cool purple lightsaber, but no, you suck butt.
Yeah. I mean, I've trained you well. Those are my thoughts exactly. No, I don't hate Mace Windu. It's the Jedi Council in general.
Barf.
But they really just said we care more about our reputation than our own people.
Yeah.
And
they did, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Another thing too I think we get in this arc that we don't necessarily get to see in just the movies is kind of the relationship of the clones with the Jedi. I mean, we straight up hear Rex say, like, oh, well, this can't be Ahsoka. She would never do that.
I love Rex so much.
Yes, we do. We all love
Rex. He's a baddie.
He's a king, for sure. I just find, I mean, I've said this. If I've said this once, I've said it 100 times. I think the Clone Wars is so incredible for a lot of things. But the main thing is showing us that relationship between the clones and the Jedi. Because would you agree that you don't get that in the movies?
No, in the movies they're just soldiers that you don't care about when they die. In Clone Wars, one of them gets shot down and you just stare at the screen and mouth open, like, in shock because it's so depressing.
Right, yeah, because we get to actually see that relationship. Because I find in the movies it's just, for the longest time, I'm not even going to lie to you guys, I thought they were just stormtroopers and I was very confused.
Yeah, me too.
And then, if you're a casual fan, yeah, you might not realize the importance. And I don't really think it's shown. The only real clone interaction I think we see in the movies is when Cody gives Obi-Wan back his lightsaber on Utapau right before he turns on him because of Order 66, which really isn't enough to understand the relationship. Now, I know that you don't really have thoughts on this because you actually haven't seen the Fives arc yet, but I have a lot of feelings about the Fives arc, as people have heard if they've been listening to past episodes. And this arc, when I rewatched it, just really solidified for me how much I absolutely cannot stand Commander Fox. He is the worst, okay? And that's all I'm going to say about it, but let it be known that Ari despises that guy because, you know what? He was terrible to Ahsoka and he was terrible to Fives, and that is all we need to know. Anyway, that was just a side note. I just really need to let out my rage there for a second. But let's talk about, because like you said earlier, Ahsoka's pretty cool. Let's talk about how well she avoided everyone, all the clones.
She was just like darting out of the way of everything. Like, even when they still kind of wanted her dead before Anakin stepped in, she was like full on sending it. Like, I just don't think most Jedi could avoid all that many clones because they clearly don't in Order 66.
Oof, low blow, low blow. But yeah, she was really girl bossing her way around Coruscant.
It was a vibe, 110,000%.
Didn't you go out and buy an Ahsoka Funko Pop right after that scene?
I sure did.
So inspired. Now, talking about Ahsoka on the run, here's another question for you. Had you seen any episodes with Ventress in them previously? I can't remember if you had or not.
I saw the one where she had a lot of tension with Obi-Wan in, like, the first season or whatever. Maybe it was that movie.
You mean every episode that her and Obi-Wan are together?
Yeah. I think whatever she shows up with in the first season.
Okay, yeah, because you had seen quite a bit of the first season, right?
Unfortunately.
So, the first season is fine. It does get a lot better starting at season 2, though. We will say that. So, how did you feel about seeing her again? How did that make you feel?
I was kind of just like, oh, this is happening. And then it kind of just, it just went from there. And I was like, it works. I don't think it was the greatest thing ever. I don't know if more people would have gotten excited about that weird pair.
Yeah, I got pretty excited just because I thought it was kind of... Well, because I had actually seen all of Clone Wars because I'm a much more hardcore fan than you, which is fine. But I thought it was an interesting pairing, and it was kind of interesting, like, the reasoning why Ventress actually was wanting to help Ahsoka was because she had also been kind of betrayed by the people that were supposed to be there for her. And so she was kind of like, oh, yo, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, and it was just kind of really cool, the contrast, because Ahsoka's, like, so good, and Ventress is so not good.
Yeah.
And the fact that they could find, like, a common ground.
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree. They were both girl bossing around.
Yeah, obviously.
Girl bossing around Coruscant. Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. So, let's just talk now about the apology question mark that the Jedi Order gave to Ahsoka at the end.
This is your great trial. You will be better because of this. Wah, 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 wah. Shut up! Oh, I was so mad. I just glared at the screen for the last 5 minutes.
It's true. It's true. I looked over because she was sitting across the room, and I could. If looks could kill, Mace Windu would have been dead.
I hate that man now.
So now you understand why when we were watching the Jar Jar episode with Mace Windu, and you were like, "He ain't that bad," I was still like, "Nah, he's bad."
He was really sick in that Jar Jar episode, though.
He was.
Might have to rewatch that just to slightly redeem him, but probably not, because he hurt my girl Ahsoka, and that's unforgivable.
Not to make this a Mace Windu hate podcast, though, of course. I do think the Clone Wars did help his character a lot, and I don't hate him. I hate the Jedi Council, which includes him and Yoda.
True. I think if Mace Windu was on his own, he probably wouldn't be so weird. He's just, as a whole, in the Jedi Council, a little questionable.
Yeah, well, and somebody has said to me, because I've made this point many times about, like, how could he not support his subordinates, basically, in this? And somebody made the point, like, he either gets a lot more visions or something of the dark side, so he's more wary of the dark side in general, and so that's why he was quicker to, not trust Ahsoka. But again, I still do think that this is your person. This is somebody who's dedicated their whole life to the Order, and they kind of cast her out the second that, from my perception, the second that they started to quote-unquote look bad. And that just doesn't vibe well with me.
Well, and I think they didn't really pay attention to the details either. Like, I'm gonna guess in that security prison where she was held, there probably was cameras, and when she, stumbles across the 5 or 4 dead clones, they automatically accuse her of that death, all those deaths, but she literally wasn't even there. I think they were just looking for somebody to blame because they didn't want it to be blamed on the Jedi Council as a whole. They wanted to blame one individual person, and Ahsoka was the obvious choice for that, and they didn't care about, because there was parts where, yeah, she did look slightly sus. She was constantly running away. But if they actually looked, it would not have made sense that she'd have killed Letta in the cell. That doesn't make sense.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense that she would have killed those clones. They were just jumping to conclusions because they didn't want to be blamed as a whole. They wanted to put the blame on somebody else, and we do not stand that in this household.
We do not stand that. That was very insightful. Wow.
Thank you.
12 out of 10. You're 100% correct, though. And that's when I say, oh, I don't like Yoda, I don't like Mace Windu. It's not like everything they did makes me mad. It's just like, in general, they seem very much like we need to look like the good guys rather than actually being the good guys.
Yeah, they were more focused on their image than they actually were about being their image, basically.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, preach. In this house, we don't like the Jedi Council, unless it's the High Republic Jedi Council, but that's a whole other story. So, net worth, neither of us blame Ahsoka for leaving.
Nope. Not one bit. She's better on her own. When she has her cute little carpenter's outfit in season 7, or mechanic's outfit, I did watch that part.
That's true. I think that was
the true moment when I fell in love with Ahsoka. Because she showed up in The Mandalorian, but I hadn't watched The Clone Wars really yet, so I was like, she's just like a cool chick with 2 white lightsabers. But now I'm like, oh no, she's a cool chick with 2 white lightsabers.
Maybe I should send you home with the Ahsoka book.
I'd have to.
Yeah. But anyway, we didn't really have a lot planned for this episode, as you all can probably tell. But it mostly just wanted to be kind of like a fun little reactions, especially coming, from somebody who hasn't seen a lot of the Clone Wars, because I think that's always fun. And for me, at least, it kind of, seeing my sister's reactions took me back to the first time I watched it. So I think that's fun. But I don't really have anything else I want to say. I mean, I'm sure I would if I really thought about it, but I didn't. We just watched it, and now we're reacting to it. It's like a reaction YouTube video, except it's just our voices. Aren't y'all lucky? You get to hear our beautiful voices, but you don't have to see our faces.
You are so lucky. It's really hot here.
It is really hot, actually. I think it's like 90 degrees Fahrenheit in our house. Anyway, do you have any last words?
Peace, love, stan Ahsoka, because she's a boss.
Amen.
Preach.
Amen. So with that, if you are still listening to us ramble for 15 minutes about how much of a girl boss Ahsoka is, thank you. We appreciate it. As always, please feel free to reach out to me on social media. If you have anything you want to say to my lovely sister, feel free to say that. I will pass it on. Unless it's mean, then I won't. I hope y'all are having a great day, night, morning, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are listening. And as always, may the Force be with you.